So this is the panettone cake. I'm going to slice it up now into reasonably thick slices because it can be quite fragile when you soak it in the Marsala wine. And now I'm going to soak my slices in here, give them a good soaking. I've had a request here from Santi that there's one house that they have a young child in that's very adverse to nut allergy. So we had pistachio nuts would normally be in this, but I've steered completely clear of any nuts, and I've become kind of creative and I said what will work. So now here are the ingredients all going in. The pomegranate seeds, lovely, they give the festive red colour to it. I would like a little crunch in it, and these chocolate will be lovely when we mix them through. So we've actually, because I'm making 4 of these popular cakes now, I've got twice as much as you'll need the recipe. Chocolate crumb or like a Whisper bar. They're not essential, I'm just being kind of creative. And then we got some, these are the crunchy bars with the chocolate now. And I'll mix all those in. Now I've got the mascarpone cheese and the whipped cream mixed in there already. Now I have to put in some of the Marsala wine into this, so it will flavour it a little bit, give it a little bit of flavour. So now the layering process begins. So we're just going to put in some of the mascarpone. And I've got just to finish off. Now there we have it. Basically now you want to put this in the fridge for 48 hours and it's going to give a lovely Christmassy feel and texture for Christmas morning, or for any morning. You don't have to have this cake on Christmas morning, it's lovely for a treat anytime. So happy Christmas!
Everyone, and welcome to Be My Guest with me, Mary Honan, on Lir Media TV, supporting the Samaritans, Limerick and Tipperary. And my very special guest today is the Michelin Star chef, Terry McCoy, all the way from Skerries, County Dublin. Hi, Terry.
Hello, good morning, Mary. How are you?
Sure, do you know something? I'm grand. We finally got through to you.
Yes, and it's a lovely sunny morning.
Is it lovely in Skerries?
It is beautiful here.
Awful here.
Oh, is it?
Sure.
Well, I was born in Tipperary, not far from Limerick, and I always remember the rain.
Ah.
And then when your man wrote the book, it confirmed it always seemed to be raining.
Well, it's not raining now, but it has been, and it's miserable looking, and it's just the type of weather that you'd say to yourself, I wasn't born for this weather anyway. I was born for sunnier climes, Terry. So tell me about yourself, Terry. Were you born in Skerries?
No. I was born in Tipperary town. About as far from the sea as you can get. And my mother was from the coast in kind of around Dungarvan in County Waterford. So she always used to like to go back to the sea for the summer when they got the summer holidays. So we kind of got used to that, and then that what drove me. I always preferred the sea to the land, and so there was compunction. And as soon as I could get settled anywhere, which was Skerries, I chose a place by the sea. And of course, I sail as much as I can. And I like foraging along the shore for seaweed and stuff. And one of the curious things was that the legend had it that St. Patrick, when he came back to Ireland to Christianize us after his time of slavery here, he landed he came paddling across the Irish Sea probably from Wales,
Yeah.
on an island off Skerries called Church Island or Patrick's Island. And he had with them a little goat, which was his companion, and he could milk the goat and kind of sustain himself, maybe make a little cheese or have a bit of milk for the tea or whatever.
We might be doing that again now, Terry, in level 5.
Yes, yes. It was very dangerous times. So they were suspicious of the smokes, and they said they'd leave him alone. But one day they noticed him going off south towards Donabate, and they said he'd be going off to preach to them up there, and they're fairly thick. So it'll take him a good while to do that. So he'd go out and raid the island anyway. They took advantage of his departure. And the locals found this little goat, brought it ashore here to Skerries, killed it and ate it.
Oh, Terry, that was
Yes.
going so well, that story.
Yes, but what happened then was he came ashore here and he blamed the Skerries lads for stealing and killing his goat, and he was very upset. So he put a curse on all the Skerries men that all their daughters would grow beards and all their men folk could bleat like goats.
As that happened.
And it happened, yes. The biggest expansion in Skerries is waxing parlours. So anyway, we were all, the local people were sort of afraid to mention St. Patrick because they always felt this curse they put on them. But I could see no reason, and I wondered what he could have lived on at that time, being a chef. So I started to kind of get my interest in foraging and thinking about what Patrick might have eaten and what he could have eaten and what seasons he went. So he went further north from here then, because the prevailing winds would have been southwest. And it would have been very difficult to make it around Howth Head. You couldn't if there was a southerly breeze or anything but the south or west of it. So he would have gone north, and he went north up to Strangford Lough to a place called Saul. And it's there that he founded his first church. And of course, Saul is very close to Downpatrick,
Okay.
where he's buried, or where he finally had his.
I never heard of Saul.
Saul, exactly. So that's what brought my curiosity into St. Patrick and how he would have traversed around Ireland to various parishes. And he would have been fairly sophisticated because he was of Roman origin, and he had travelled back to Rome to be ordained and all that kind of stuff. So he was well travelled. So he would have brought a bit of a store locker with him. But you can imagine when he rocked up to one of the chiefs here.
My saying,
Well, you'll have dinner with me tonight. So they would have thrown a leg of lamb or a hogget into a pit with a whole load of hot stones and water and boiled it up and then ate it off the bone. And Patrick would have been kind of a little bit kind of put out by this. So he said, if you don't mind, Chief, I'll do the cooking tomorrow night. And so that would have happened. And,
I would have thought he would have been.
They would have said, my goodness, so Christians eat like this. Oh, Jesus, I'll become a Christian. So it would be easy enough.
But Terry, I would have thought he would have been like me, a pescatarian. I don't eat meat. I went off meat 2 years ago. And it's no bother to me because I love vegetables anyway. And I've been looking, I have to show, this is Terry's fabulous book. It's just absolutely beautiful. And inside it, I love books. I love the smell of books, and especially new ones, but it's just an absolutely beautiful book with full of recipes. What's there, say, for people like me who just eat fish?
Well, there's several recipes on fish in it. You'll see them there. There's a beautiful one with using hake.
Yeah.
It's a very, very lovely fish. And I've kind of taken it with horseradish. Now, horseradish grows really like a weed when you get it started. That's I kind of use the horseradish. It's sort of spicy and sharp to kind of bring out the flavour of the hake.
So
on page
that's it.
54.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So there's lots of recipes, but all of these things could have been produced by Patrick at the time. And when I was researching the book, we actually found a list of shopping ingredients from Roman centurions on Hadrian's Wall.
Okay.
And if you went to any supermarket today, you would find a similar, you'd have that shopping list and you could get all the ingredients that they wanted. So that it just shows that things haven't changed a lot, except for one thing. We've industrialized food and we prolonged its shelf life, and we use kind of dangerous chemicals. Preservatives. Yes, for instance, saltpeter is used to preserve or elongate the life of things like black puddings and bacon and everything else. But like that's kind of dangerous stuff. Saltpeter is used in making bombs and gunpowder, and you wouldn't sit down by the fire and have a little dish of saltpeter beside you, or you might lose your nose.
Come here, I love that.
On another day during this virus shutdown, here's a nice thing that you can do from St. Patrick's plate is make St. Patrick's flapjacks. So all we need here is some porridge oats, very simple, some honey, some golden syrup, some butter, sugar, and a tray with parchment paper, and then a hot oven. So we'll mix these together gradually now. I'm not my own cameraman, but we'll get there. So now there we are. We've got the brown sugar, golden syrup, and the butter all mixing together. Almost ready now to mix it into the oats. Very well. Take your time. Maybe keep the heat on a little bit so that the sugar and butter mixture, or the golden syrup and butter mixture, doesn't kind of dry out or go cold and won't mix. So we just have to take our time about doing this folding and folding and folding. Onto of the oats, porridge oats, the golden syrup and sugar and butter mixture onto this tray with some parchment paper, which I hope will make it non-stick, and then we place it into a oven of about 180 degrees. Then just pop them in the oven like that, 180 degrees. And so here we are, St. Patrick's flapjacks after 20 minutes in the oven. My goodness, the smell, the aroma, beautiful. This is the way to get them eating porridge. Ha ha!
I love that Isle of Man Queenies, and it looks, that would be no, because I don't have a huge appetite at all. I have a bigger, my eyes are bigger than my belly, as they say.
They're lovely and sweet.
That would fill me now with
and they're easily catchable all along the coast here, but you'd have to get very low tides. Did we send you the video clip of me searching for the razorfish? You didn't get it?
No, not yet.
Okay. Right.
Send it to me so I can put it into this.
Okay.
But you know what I love about your book as well, and I interviewed another chef there recently, is the addition of scenes from Ireland.
Yes.
I think it adds an extra dimension, I think, to any book, is to actually...
Yes, when you see Patrick he went all around Ireland, so we felt that would be a good idea. Like, and the front cover has Croagh Patrick on it.
yeah. And I'm looking at this one here. It's just beautiful. It's
Yes,
like, is that the Rocket Cashel?
it is. Yes, of
Yeah,
course.
I
Yeah.
knew it looked like the Rocket Cashel. It's beautiful. Do you know
But for
there's
any of
something
your
in it for
friends abroad,
everybody.
it'd be a lovely present
I
for
have
them.
to say, chowder is not something that I would go. I don't like food that's white. I'm
Really?
an oddball. If
Ah,
the
well.
food is white, I
But
won't
you
eat
could
it.
add
It
a bit
has
of
to have
colour.
lots of color.
You could add a bit of colour to it. You know,
I'm
create.
a,
But
I'm
there's
a,
over 60 recipes in the book. So there's something for everybody there. There's for experienced cooks and less accomplished chefs.
yeah,
Uh, it's good.
it's an
Also for
amazing book.
accomplished chefs.
The the spring vegetable or spring onion soup looks lovely.
It is, yeah. And the wild garlic one too is very good.
Yeah,
The wild garlic. And
yeah.
yeah, but there's lovely, as I said, seafood dishes. There's tasty snacks and starters, lovely desserts, as well as how to make homemade stocks. And of
And if
course,
you're into brown bread,
brown bread, that's a really very good brown bread, yes. Every parish has a different recipe for brown bread, but
do
they're
you
all
know
grand.
there was an old lady lived next door to us. She was from Mayo, and she used to make bread all the time. She used to make the
The,
uh,
or the loaf that we
loaf,
make, like
and she used to send them in to my mum, but she never measured anything. And my grandmother was Welsh, like St. Patrick, and she used to make bread, and she used to make cakes, and she never measured anything, and it was amazing to watch.
yes,
That they could have it down to an art to know exactly how much salt to put in and exactly how much yeast to put in and
yeah.
exactly how much flour and be it's an amazing. It's almost like farmers years ago could just look at the sunset and tell you what time of the day it was.
Yeah, but I could imagine that lady when she was young probably made a lot of mistakes and got quite scolded, because we never like wasting anything. But you do learn and then you become familiar with stuff. And confidence is like riding a bicycle or driving a car, you become more and more confident. The big issue is now the laptops and the screens and the technology. We're having to learn all of that kind of stuff now.
But
So,
Terry, I know as somebody who's written a book just how difficult it is to actually go from the thought process of I'm going to write a book to the actual physicality of it. What was the most difficult part of this process for you, or was it all just an absolute joy from start to finish with no glitches?
well, I have a couple of partners in the book. There's a Joe Shannon and
That's
Fergus
right.
Cannon, and they're related. But those guys were customers of mine in the restaurant before I retired. So I would always be regaling people with stories, stuff like that. And they kind of said, look, there's a book in you. When you get finished, we'll get it done. So they were the great prodders. They kept poking me. But luckily, I had written out a lot of the recipes and put them down on my computer and printed them out. So I had a volume of the work done, but then I had to sit down and do some research, like on what the Romans would have eaten at that time. And so there was a bit of work to do in that. But none of it was too arduous. It wasn't difficult. It was good. And I enjoyed doing it. And I imagine I might go back and try another one now in time, but we still have to shift a lot of copies of this.
I know the feeling.
Something we're doing at the moment is we're putting together a Christmas hamper, which you can see up here. And in that, we're going to have, take it down now so you can see, we're going to have a couple of jars of one of blackberry jam, which
But
we're
that
out picking the
looks
blackberries at the moment.
magnificent. That
And
looks
another
stunning,
one will
Terry.
be apple and plum compote, which is from the book. The recipes are all from the book. There'll be there'll be a little packet of carrageen moss and other goodies in that. And the book, of course. So you can order that online at www.stpatricksplate.com, and it would make a lovely Christmas present.
I'll put that up.
Yes.
But tell me, what's it like inside in that?
In the box. I'll open it up now.
That looks fabulous. I've never seen a hamper like that. A
No.
little bit higher, Terry. Little bit higher.
Higher.
Yeah. Fabulous.
You'll have a glove, and it's all been sourced in Ireland with Irish linen. The book was printed in Ireland, which we're very proud. The blackberry jam here
Is made in Ireland.
berries, and the wooden spoon, you can beat your children away from the jam. And we have to put the apple compote, and we'll have a couple of more goodies as well. So everybody's getting used to shopping online. So there's an ideal one and an ideal present for Christmas.
Yeah, and all the businesses online are the ones that are making money now.
You reckon?
It's harvest time of the year, and as you'll see, I'm in the orchard now with the apples, and we're going to pick a few of these. And we have a plum tree behind us, and we'll get some plums. But we've also been up to Saul, which was the very first church, by all accounts, that St. Patrick founded in Saul, and we were inspired by the wonderful singing of the choir practicing for the Harvest Festival. So you can see the apples are particularly good on the tree. Some of them are turning slightly, have a slight bit of colour in them, but they're wonderful cooking apples, and these will be perfect mixed with the plums. And we'll also put a little carrageen moss in, rather than have too much sugar in it. Lovely on your porridge. The kettle be boiled. Now we'll do the plums. So here we are at the plum tree now. And these go so well with the apples. So I'll pick a few that are on the ground as well. The fallen ones. Lovely. So we're just back from the orchard where we collected the windfall apples, and we collected the plums, and we're going to make apple and plum compote, which is ideal as an accompaniment or a dessert with ice cream, or I love it on my porridge. The recipe is on page 76 in the book. We'll just do these apples first. So we're just going to core the apples. Some of them may have bruises in them like that after their windfall. So we won't be too worried about that. We'll cut that out. I'm going to just use some of the rind of the lemon to give a little flavour. So we don't want to waste anything. Patrick would have been very proud of how he stored these lemons, and he wouldn't have liked to waste anything, so we shouldn't waste anything. What we'll try to do is we'll try to cut out the amount of sugar. So what we're going to do is use carrageen moss, which you can get this, and it's pretty easy to get in the fishmongers, or in most supermarkets now would have it, and that will thicken as the sugar would have thickened, so we can cut down on the amount of sugar. So we know that the winter's coming, so that should prompt us to make things like this that our grandparents and mothers and fathers would have done. Just going to do the plums now after the apples. So we're just cutting through them like this. We know there's a big stone in the middle. We'll kind of go around that a little bit. That's the stone is in there. And look at the lovely luscious fruit. So that goes into the pot. These all go in. The sugar. You won't need much more than that if you boil it down. And now we can use our carrageen. Put it in there. And it will dissolve into it. You won't even notice it. It'll help thicken it. So there she boils.
Nice one.
We'll turn it down a bit, but it still will need to stew for another while. Isn't it lovely, Colin? Some of our mottos, and way back in Patrick's time, would have been throw nothing out, waste nothing. So all the jam jars and everything that I get, I save them up, but I always have an idea I'm going to put something back into them. So we used 5 apples and 5 plums. We peeled and cored them and added about a litre of water and about 3 tablespoonfuls of brown sugar and a big strand of carrageen moss. And we've made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 jars of compote that you could actually give out as Christmas presents or Christmas time and save yourself a lot of money.
Jina tukufu la furahisha linatutuliza, malaika mbinguni wanalimba, usiku na mchana wanalimba, wakisema ave ave Maria. Ni jina tukufu, jina la Maria, wakisema ave ave Maria. Ni jina tukufu, jina la Maria.
Lovely.
Excellent.
Well, then there's hope for me. There's hope for me in this pandemic.
There's hope. At least we can interview people during the pandemic. There's no difficulty with that. So
Oh no, that's been a great advantage, the technology, because without it, we'd be a bit stuck. But like we remember other times in the 50s and 60s in Ireland when there wasn't much entertainment, but we wouldn't have been able to get through this quite as easily. I often think of the poor people with the Spanish flu, what it must have been like.
were you always interested in being a chef? Was it a burning desire with you, and how did you start off? Because you
Yes.
obviously started off as a little boy.
Well, I was sent to boarding school in Dublin and from Tipperary town, and there the delivery vans would pull up, but they'd also pull up. This was Wesley College, and it was on St. Stephen's Green in those days, and there was a fabulous hotel right beside it, and the same butcher would deliver meat to the hotel, and he'd also deliver meat to Wesley. And what the cooks in Wesley College used to do with the meat and what the chefs in the hotel used to do were two different. So I reckoned it had to be education and training. So I wanted to become a chef, because if you have ever eaten a thing called rissoles, it was mincemeat.
Results, yeah.
That. Well, we used to say one man's meat is another man's rissoles. So I always was kind of very interested in cooking, because as a young fellow I was starving, and I reckoned never got enough food.
Were you in boarding school?
In boarding school, there was never enough.
So
Porridge
you
was,
started
porridge was the most exciting thing in the day, and you could probably trade 2 bowls of porridge for a sausage off another fella. So it was the value.
I forget which celebrity was talking there recently about being a boarder in a school, and he wrote home to his mother, "I hate you. I just want to tell you that now. But if you want to get back in my good books, you can send me some food." He was sent to about 4 different schools and eventually into a boarding school. And
Yeah.
I hate you. You can't love me to send me here. I'm starving, and if you want to get back in my good book, send me food.
Yeah, yeah. But you're saying who else influenced me over the years? I think I was very fortunate then to travel around a number of hotels as a commis chef. And then on my day off from Park na Silla, I used to go into Kenmare and I found Maura Foley and her lovely
I had more.
the purple heather. Yes.
She's fabulous.
On my day off, I used to give Maura a little bit of a hand, not much now, but she was very creative, completely different to the type of chefs that were working in Park na Silla. Although the food standard was really excellent there, like it
Yeah.
had a great reputation.
You-
So I learned a lot from different ways people were looking at the same dish or the same piece of fish. You know, if 4 different or 5 different chefs looked at it, they'd all come up with a slightly different idea, all of them worthy.
Yeah.
And then I was fortunate enough to be sent to France, Germany, and Switzerland. And I cooked in all those countries and learned a bit of French and a bit of German. So it was an exciting life, really.
Enough to get you into trouble.
Yes, yes. Well, there was always plenty of trouble waiting, yes. For a young fella under 20, yes, there was.
God, you were young going over there.
Well, I was, yeah. I had my 19th birthday in Germany. And I think my 21st birthday would have been in America.
My 21st was in Germany.
Yeah. Wow.
I was over there dancing.
Oh, right. Are you a dancer, yeah?
Well, I was with Bunratty Castle for 14
Right.
years.
My
So,
goodness.
so yeah.
Well, I probably leered up at you then at the stage when I was lying back having my ribs, the spare ribs. I remember there.
The spare ribs, yeah, it's still the same. So it's the only time you'll actually. I don't like. I don't know. The more I'm listening to myself, the more I think there's something wrong with me, because I don't like my hands getting sticky. Do you know?
Oh.
So I won't. I couldn't eat anything that you're eating with your hands, because I just hate the feeling of stick.
Oh, all right.
You have to eat in Bunratty with your fingers.
Yes, I remember
They
it.
don't give you a
Yes.
knife and fork.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the Americans find that really hard to do, but
Well, they don't use knives, they just use forks.
they just use forks. But the idea of
Everything has to be cut with the fork, yeah.
yeah, but the idea of picking up the food with your hands, they don't understand, but they get used to it.
No.
But what do you think of the emergence, I suppose, of celebrity chefs? Do you consider
Well-
yourself a celebrity chef? Because I
Well,
consider
I did it for a while when I was more photogenic. And I did like potluck and ready, steady, cook and
yeah.
all that kind of stuff. And what I found was that the public kind of wondered how you could be on television at 8 o'clock at night when you should be in your kitchen. And I did it for a while and then decided that yes, it was good advertising and marketing, but there was nothing better than being back in your own kitchen, cooking for your own customers. So I left the younger brigade expand into that, and they have done very well. Now, I'm not so sure how many people cook the recipes that they see on television, but they certainly watch the programs. Very much so. I mean, there's Darina Allen and that, they're just very good, and her brother on television now. So they are explaining. This beach that I'm on in Skerries is now a blue flag beach. So we know the water quality is very good here. If you observe in the pool here now, you'll see the green lettuce seaweed, and this is perfectly usable for salads. It doesn't have a thickening agent, it's just very, very flavoursome. And there, Patrick would have been out on the island off there. So Patrick would have eaten all this kind of stuff. So you can make your own pasta, not buy it, and you can do everything yourself, and the cost would only be pennies. Now, if you look here in this pool, you see the bladder rack.
But even as it goes on towards September, it even gets more gelatinous. But it'll be fine for a bath now. And the Roman soldiers around Patrick's time knew all the benefit of saltwater baths and seaweed baths, and they used to use this bladder rack to refresh themselves and to get over all sorts of aches and pains. And what would be wonderful for if you'd a sore back from playing golf or running or racing or cycling or anything like that, a bath with this bladder rack in it, it's just superb. Costs nothing but to use a scissors and cut it off so that the bladder rack can replenish itself. So here's another piece of edible seaweed, kelp, and poaches very well and is actually full of iodine. So you wouldn't really want to eat a huge amount of it just as a composite with other dishes, if you like, you know. Now this is the result of our foraging, all inspired by the book. And we were able to find them all on the shore here in Skerries. They're full of trace elements like magnesium and iron and iodine. So and many more trace elements. I'm not a scientist, but they're really good for you. And I've been eating this stuff for years and years and years. So I'm going to try and make up an interesting pasta dish. But what a lovely way to get your kids out now in the springtime on the shore foraging for all this stuff. Just make sure that you've got a clean area, that it's a blue flag beach that you're getting from. So now, this is the sea spaghetti. And this one then is Alaria. But we would know that from growing out quite deep in the sea. Then this is the sea lettuce you saw me getting down in the pool at the shore. Beautiful for salads. This one here then, these are all like little bits of dillisk and little bits of other things gathered up, all edible, that I'm going to use to garnish the dish. And this is the famous dulsk or dilsk. And what they would do is in the summertime, they would put those on the rocks in the sun and try and dry it, and it becomes crispy and hard. So instead of eating potato skins and crisps from Tato and that, you should be eating this. And it's absolutely delicious with a bottle of beer or white wine. I put a little olive oil in there. I'm actually going to try and stay away completely from any butter or cream, because we're on a new kick now in the new year. We're trying to get off our weight and get more active. So I'm going to start off with my pasta. Here, which I just cooked earlier. We're going to add in some of the sea spaghetti. So I'm throwing in a little of the Alaria from the deep water, and then a little bit of the lettuce, from the sea lettuce. I put in some carrot. I'm going to toss this now. So we're getting the sizzle into this now, and it's like everything else. It's not the steak or the eggs, it's the sizzle that counts. This is the carrageen moss, which is a natural thickener. So I'm going to put it in there, and a little bit of this juice. You can see how thick it is. We're nearly ready now, and it's just as quick as that to serve it up. But I'm kind of going on what St. Patrick would have gotten, what he would have had available to him. And this is exactly what he would have eaten. And people wonder, that's all for free down on the shore in Ireland. Anyway, so we're ready to plate up now. And you see how the carrageen moss has thickened everything up. So you don't need any thickening agent or anything. All this has been given to us by the sea. And then we're done, all for free. So every little ache and pain I ever had is melting away. Now this is becoming actually very gelatinous if you look at the water. But actually in September or October, this will issue a lot more jelly out, but it's absolutely fabulous for your skin and back and anything else you might be covering up.
Rory, I think. Rory is his name, yeah. And then, yeah, our man from Cavan, Neffin, of course, he's very popular. Yeah. And he seems to be a real sweetheart with the female cooking population now. Yeah.
Nevin Maguire.
Nevin Maguire, yes, indeed. Of course, he's published a lot of books. So it's excellent, and they're kind of introducing new concepts to Irish food, whereas I would be kind of a traditional, not using many spices or that, but I'd be just going out, looking at the countryside, what's available. And I love that, the idea of going out foraging for stuff. And I would encourage people today to go out and pick the blackberries. And at the moment, you can go and pick mushrooms. There are a lot of mushrooms out in the forest now. And there are certain trees of certain different types of mushrooms. So it's well worth going out. Now, earlier in the year, I went out and I picked elderflowers, and I made kind of an elderflower champagne. So there's a recipe for that in the book. Now you can also add the elderberries to your jams and that.
Are they alcoholic?
My father used to make wine out of elderberries.
Have they alcohol in them?
It would have, because it's a certain amount of fermentation. And that is natural. And I don't know how to take the alcohol out of it, except drink it or eat it. So I haven't got the science.
I remember a chef years ago, and he had a lasting impression on me. He made a lasting impression. I was only a child. But wasn't it Fry? Was his name? Was it Fry? He used to drink. He always had a glass of wine in his hand. He died.
Oh, was that Keith Floyd?
Keith Floyd.
Yes.
With an F. Keith Floyd. I used to like him.
Of course, yeah.
Even as a child, I thought he was very charismatic and very charming, and I still love the way he was. By the time he was finished doing the show, he was drunk because he was drinking all the time.
He was a bit slapdash.
A bit of this.
He had an encounter with Myrtle Allen from Ballymaloo, and I don't think they made a program of it, but she was kind of quite scathing of his knowledge. But he's great fun. He's shown almost every week now on the BBC on I think Saturday Morning Live.
Really?
Yeah, and they have a piece of Keith Floyd almost every week. Yes.
Oh, I was only a child.
It's a lovely program to watch.
Him.
That's one program I really like watching. Is Saturday Morning on the BBC.
Saturday Morning on the BBC. On the other hand, what do you think of Gordon Ramsay?
Well, I think the television cameras like blood on the carpet, and they like the roaring and the drama of it, and I think that's what it's about. He is a serious cook.
Oh, he is.
But like the rest is all drama.
Yeah, and I don't
really watch it for that reason. I prefer to watch something about good cooking and less drama.
I suppose, for personality-wise, I love looking at cookery programs. I'm not really domesticated. I have all these visions of what I'd like to do. I love baking.
I know, but then you have to crack an egg, and there's a mess.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm like my grandmother. Every knife and spoon and plate fork would be used, whereas my mom used to use one knife and one fork, and she'd wash it, and then she'd use it again, and she'd wash it. Whereas the whole kitchen is occupied when I'm cooking. But I like Gino De Campo. I like his food. I like his. I think. I don't know if you agree with me. I think personality is something that can actually sell as much as talent.
Well, his background then is very photogenic, like the Italian places they cook in, and the lovely ingredients they can make. But when we're stuck with carrots and parsnips, and spuds and cauliflower and cabbage, it's somewhat more challenging to
the wilderness.
Make them look as sexy as Gino does. This lovely background.
Gino is up there in the Amalfi Coast.
Yes.
And you're in the wilds of wherever, but
yes, up in Cavan. Fog coming down on top of you, yeah.
with your
I-
carrots and
You're
parsnips.
trying to light the stove to make your porridge. It's a less attractive. But no, we can make Ireland. Ireland has wonderful, wonderful ingredients. What the
Fabulous.
farmers are producing here, and what the artisan, the cheesemakers and all
Yeah.
these, we've really come a long way. In fact, we the envy of Europe because a lot of the European chefs now know what's grown in Ireland. I mean, even what's his name, the chef from London, and he has his garden up in Cavan, and they grow the vegetables and send them over to London to him. So, but
But
all
I-
this pandemic now has made things quite difficult. But at the same time, it's a challenge, and people can go out and walk within their 5 mile radius, and they can bring their children out, and they can pick the blackberries, look for crab apples, look for rosehips, look for all these things, and come home and cook them. They'll have the time to do it. So, and they can enjoy that, and they can get the book, St. Patrick's plate, and they'll have the recipes there that they can follow. And maybe St. Patrick will have a reason to get fresh air into people, exercise into people, and actually get up their immune system because you're eating fresh food and not preservatives. And St. Patrick could have an influence on banishing this plague from Ireland at the moment.
It's how is it affecting? I'll get on. I suppose I'll get on to that. But I mean, you were talking about the fact of hearing the basics of carrots and parsnips. The hairy bikers, they kind of made it cool as well to promote normal food, nothing grand, just plain, plain cooking.
Pies and stuff.
Pies and
Yeah.
things that you want to do in
Yeah.
quickly. Do you know? Is that
Well,
that?
then there's a lot of chefs are doing wood pot wonders.
Yeah.
So there isn't a lot of washing up. And,
Yeah, that's what I like. That's the type of food I like that doesn't require a lot of washing up.
yes. Young Skehan, the young chef, he's from Holt, and he's made a big business now in the United States of America, Donald Skehan, and he's on television
Yeah,
quite.
yeah.
So he's a modern chef making his way up.
And
But
it's
I'd like to stick back in my old traditions of St. Patrick and his type of things. I modernize them a little bit. But I really want to get people onto the idea of keeping away from preservatives and long life food and that. Get as much fresh veg into you as you possibly can.
Do you, like me, feel that, if I'm going on the train or even driving from Limerick to Dublin, I'm very conscious of the fact that you can go for miles and miles. It's 120 miles from Limerick to Dublin. And it's mostly, if you, depending on the direction you go, it's mostly 120 miles of land after land after land after land with nothing on it, not even a cow. And you're saying to yourself, why don't farmers diversify more and use their land? It's just, I mean, I saw there a while back 2 young farmers who decided to start making their own beers on the farm, and they weren't making enough from dairy, so they decided to grow their own hops and make their own beer. And I thought, that's what you need. And I saw another farmer who had started to make cheese. And do you think, like me, that there's room for farmers to maybe start having potatoes on their land, or that they should be either encouraged or expected to use their land for either growing vegetables or or making cheese or doing something else, that they're not solely dependent on meat and and dairy that they have.
Yes, of course. But I think the current crux seems to be the getting down the gases and the energy, you know, and now the new government, the three-party government, are kind of honed in on this. So farmers will have to diversify, and I think they will diversify. But, you know, I think we need to, when we go to the shop, we need to look for the organic vegetables, not buy so much. We need to be better shoppers. So we need to encourage our shopkeepers to buy the organic vegetables from the organic growers, because these guys don't use pesticides.
Yeah.
If we don't use pesticides, we'll get the bees back. And the bees now are dying out in Ireland and all over the world. So we really need to think about what we're buying and doing. And I think we are. And I think the government will encourage us to do this.
But it's very expensive.
Yes, I know it is expensive, but don't buy so much, because I think if there's surveys done where we throw out a third to half of what we buy, because it goes off in a sell-by date, or the carrots are kept in a plastic bag and they get soiled. And so if we during this pandemic now, where we'll have a lot more time off, we hope some people will have, if they could just moderately change their shopping habits to go for organic vegetables, or even go out into the garden and plant a few winter crops themselves, like beetroot now is a beautifully sweet thing that could be sown at this time of the year, and leeks.
I love beetroot.
Yeah, so I would encourage the farmers to move over to organic. Now, certain parts of Ireland won't have the depth of soil, and they will have to stay doing their farming, their sheep and their cattle, that kind of thing. It won't work for everybody, but where it can do, it should do, because there is a growing demand for properly homegrown vegetables, or properly, and the farmers' markets and that. So I would really encourage them to do that. Now, the supermarkets are not very easy to deal with, because they want quantities, and they get you on their hook and get you growing for them, and then they'll drive down the price, demand more and more. So vegetable farmers, I know that because I live around here in North County, Dublin, and the farmers do have a tough time dealing with the supermarkets. But I think if they developed into farmers markets and that kind of thing,
yes, bypass the supermarkets.
They get an extra few pence for their leek, you know, but it's an organically grown leek. You could go there twice a week to the farmers market and get that way. I just,
well, how can people?
now, it often isn't practical for modern lives today, because the girls are both working and the husbands are working. They come home at 8 o'clock at night. They're knackered. The last thing they want to do is start going into.
Well, Terry, I'm conscious that you're a busy man today, but how can people get your book if they want it?
Yes, well, we have it online, really. We published it ourselves, and the book was printed in Ireland in Ballymount Industry. So it's all Irish. The ingredients are all Irish. The recipes, everything in it is Irish. So if you go on to the website, www.stpatricksplate.com, you can order the book there, and you can also order the book with the Christmas hamper.
Okay.
And that's how to encourage people to do that. And we'll have it with you in good time. Might take a few days to get there, but we will get it. We have an arrangement. So it's anything but Amazon, but it works.
Anything but Amazon. Yes. Excellent. Well, Terry McCoy, thank you so very much for being my guest today. I can see you're
delighted to be here, and it's lovely to be looking at you, Mary. I was just listening to you before this, but now I can see you.
Now you can see me. I'm not sure is that a good thing, but there you go. Terry, thanks ever so much.
Okay, thank you and good luck.
Slán leat.
Slán leat.
Bye bye.
So I'm up here at the Skerries allotments at the chicken coop to collect a few eggs to make eggnog. And the hens have obviously got word of this, that the chef is coming, because every time I come here, one of their number gets their neck wrong. So they know well to keep away from me. So I have 250 grams of sugar into the saucepan, in with the milk, some double cream. And the recipe's all in the book, St. Patrick's Plate. Just all that together and the cinnamon stick in to infuse it. So we just bring that to the heat, it'll be a scald, and meanwhile we'll separate the eggs. So we're going to save the whites, but we're going to make a pavlova from those, or you could make scrambled eggs. Nothing is wasted here. So we just let that come off the heat now. Adding the sugar. And we beat the egg yolks and sugar together until they become white and creamy. The electric beater would be a lot handier, but they didn't have electricity in St. Patrick's time, so I just have to suffer on and do this so that it's as authentic as possible. The next thing is to add in the scalded milk, just a little bit at a time, so as not to curdle the eggs. And whisk that in, a little bit more. Now I can go a little bit faster now with it. Now, I've got to add the whiskey. There we are, a generous dollop of whiskey. And now what we have to do is let that cool down, but leave it in the fridge to cool down and it'll thicken up. And we'll show it to you now in a minute when we pour it out into a glass. Here I am, sitting beside my Christmas tree on Christmas morning with the perfect accompaniment for Christmas to start the morning off. St. Patrick's eggnog. And the recipe is in our book, www.stpatricksplate.com. Very easy to make using free-range egg yolks and a little whiskey, Irish whiskey, and some other secret ingredients, but you'll have to get the recipe in the book. Cheers everybody and a happy Christmas. Oh, delicious.